Hi all, welcome to this, our third MelBUG group meeting. So just a bit of the agenda today. We're going to run through just a bit of introductions about what MelBUG is and who's supporting MelBUG, and then we're going to get straight into the presentations. So we do have today two great speakers, really looking forward to both of these guys. So yeah, let's get straight into it. So MelBUG is a pretty typical user group. We are trying to really support the local industry, so we're really by the users for the users. So we do have support from Bluebeam themselves in helping us get set up, but really all of the day-to-day end users. So really we want to collaborate and really just get people together, sharing knowledge, learning from one another. Bringing together a really diverse group of people, I think, is the key. And this is quite a great group that we have here already in our third session. So there is quite a few other groups around the world, and this is a growing number. So we will share a few links. Shan will have some news later that overviews a little bit of what's going on, but there's a lot of great content out there. Great thing about this remote working that we're all having to go through is that some of these groups are now recording these sessions because they are online. So that is one good byproduct, that we're getting more of this content out there now. So there is a lot of great stuff, and Shan will share some of the stuff he found with the London user group in his news segment. So just overviewing the group that puts this together. Myself, Ben May, I'm a digital transformation director at ACOM, and the chairperson and founder of the MelBUG group. And then we also have our other committee members, and we all really contribute, to this group. And a lot of thanks goes out to these team members, and we do have a bit of a diverse team there with Sing Sing at CPB coming from the construction part of it. Lachlan I work very closely with, and one of our super users and one of the big adopters of Bluebeam here at ACOM in the engineering space, and then Shanok in the training and reseller space with Mind Systems. So I think we have a good network, and and most of the effort for us is getting speakers and making sure that we have some great content for you guys. So we'll speak a bit more about that later in this session as well. So on to the speakers tonight. As I said, we have two great speakers. Giovanni, some people would know, he's quite passionate about all things digital. You'll see him pretty active on LinkedIn, and he does lead some of the other things going on around computational design. And then Sean, hopefully many of you have met him now with Bluebeam, long history in the BIM and CAD space as well. So getting straight into Giovanni. Giovanni, he put himself forward to speak, and that's really fantastic. After the last session, he was actually our spot prize winner of the Bluebeam book by Deepak last session. Really keen to see Giovanni's workflows here. I've heard a lot about workflows of, integrating Revit to Bluebeam and back again. Some of it does get quite technical. He's got a lot of great content that he's happy to share with everyone as well afterwards. So yeah, let's get to it.
The key features of the Bluebeam Revit add-in, and then I will use Dynamo to extract data from a PDF file and transfer it back into Revit. To do so, I will go through a series of quick examples, starting from Revit to PDF, and then the PDF back to Revit. First of all, the Bluebeam Revit add-in will only appear if you have the CAD or Extreme version of Bluebeam installed. And in Revit, you can easily create 2D PDFs or 3D PDFs. Let's start looking at how to create single PDFs. So first of all, you need to tick the one file per view sheet, and You can also untick the prompt for file name, will be easier. Then you can choose what you want to plot, the current view or selected views. You can filter them. It's quite powerful, quite easy to just access the one that the views or the sheets that you want. You can save them, and you can customize the page setup, or you can use the Revit one, or you can create a new one directly from the Bluebeam settings. You can add security, passwords, and bookmarks, which are quite useful for combined PDF, which we will see later. So once you click on the create file, it will this window will pop up where you can set a prefix or a suffix that will apply to all the drawings. And after a few seconds, your PDFs will be created, and you can see that Bluebeam just assigned the sheet number and sheet name to the label of the PDF, and it assigned custom properties which are taken from the Revit project information, and they will be all the same for these 3 PDFs that I have created, and also tags which are unique to each individual sheet. In this case, these are parameters that exist in Revit, and they have been exported and embedded into each PDF. To create a combined PDF is basically the same workflow. You just untick this one file, and then again you can select the views, the sheet that you want to export. And once you open it in Bluebeam, you will see the bookmarks appearing, which you can use to navigate between pages, and custom properties and tags, similar to what we had before. In the second example, I'll show you how to create a 3D PDF. First of all, a 3D view must be activated. And then there are 3 different options. I usually just use the copy 3D to clipboard, is the quickest one. And this will copy the content of the 3D view into the clipboard, and then you just paste into an existing PDF. Once you've done that, you can, of course, navigate through the model with just the rotation, spin, zoom, the normal features. But also, sorry, I knew it was going to happen. You can explore properties that each object has, and you can also navigate through a 3D model tree, which allows you to control the visibility and the other settings like color and display mode of entire categories. So you can turn off objects, and also you can cut sections quite easily. If you close the PDF, even if you save the PDF and if you close it, the settings of the 3D view will be reverted back to the ones that were there when you paste. So these section views will not be saved, unfortunately. Now, before jumping into the last example, I'm going to spend a few words on Dynamo and visual programming for those who are new to this topic. Dynamo is a Revit add-in, which is developed by Autodesk, and it runs inside Revit while Revit is in idle state, while there are no other commands running. In visual programming, each node, we can simplify the concept in saying that each node represents one line of code, one of more lines of code, and data comes into the node from the left. The node runs, and then it outputs the results to the right, and each node is connected to the other. The goal is to create a set of connected nodes that perform the same action on ideally a large number of inputs. This action can be grouped into these 4 categories. Dynamo is open source, so users have started creating packages of custom nodes to add new features, similar to what a Revit add-in would do. For this presentation, I've been using a package called Dynamo PDF, created by Maximilian Tumfort, and I've added a couple of nodes to perform some additional features. The last example from Revit to PDF is extending the Bluebeam add-in in order to add custom properties to the PDFs. So in this case, I am extracting the sheet number, the name, and the current revision of the current view. And I'm using Dynamo to embed these values into an existing PDF. Of course, this example works for one PDF, but it can be applied. It can be used. It can be run on multiple PDFs with multiple properties at the same time. So when you open the PDF, these additional properties will be visible, will appear in the custom properties section. This can be useful because, for example, you can embed the view names that are on a PDF, and potentially you could embed the element IDs that are displayed into these views. And also you can use the Bluebeam search function to search through these file properties. Since you can also visualize this information embedded into a PDF from a desktop application, a simple desktop application, and this can be maybe useful for quality control, just to check that the revision matches what it should be, and the issue date, and the name of the file, and also it can be used to sort them by any of the properties that you have embedded. Let's now see how to go from Bluebeam to Revit. There is no import function in the Revit add-in, in the Bluebeam Revit add-in, so we will still need to use Dynamo and Dynamo PDF package. There are 3 main data types that we can read. We can read the entire PDF as a text, or the markups that we have added to the PDF. And these can be geometry, so curves and lines, which come up in this is the Dynamo interface. Pretty, they are matching the content in Bluebeam. And while for the text, you see that we have the bounding box of the text, the rectangle that goes around, but we need an additional node to extract the content and the value. And also we can extract the custom properties and the bookmarks quite easily. So I usually received a combined set of markups into one single PDF, and this single PDF contains multiple pages which are usually just random. So with this Dynamo script, I can extract the bookmarks and use these just a little bit, playing around a little bit, and get the sheet numbers, and then create a view set. So once the PDFs have been amended, I can just directly print them and send them back to the engineer without having to go and pick them one by one. The second example is, for example, when I have drawn a 2D detail and I need to add some text. The normal workflow would be to copy the content of the TextNote and then in Revit just place a TextNote and then paste the text. With Dynamo, we can skip a couple of passages by reading the content of the clipboard, of the Windows clipboard, and then using that to directly place the TextNote. Of course, it's not accurate. The user still need to tweak the position, tweak the arrow leader, and adjust probably the text width. But it can be useful. It can be helpful to speed up the workflow. And also, once you have the script in Dynamo, I think the best way, if you use the script quite often, is to convert it into a Revit add-in, and this will be much more quicker and gives the user a better user interface or more options to play with. In the final example is basically a combination of the previous two. So we have both lines and text in Bluebeam, and we can import them in Revit, maintaining the correct line styles and text location. So for the line styles is pretty straightforward, but for the text, you see that it's roughly placed where it should be, but it doesn't reflect, especially when the arrow is pointing to the right, in this case, the correct what is drawn in Bluebeam. And again, in this case, it's up to the final user to find, I think, a balance between the complexity of the script and what is an acceptable solution in Revit. So, in conclusion, PDF files can hold geometry, text, and custom properties. Bluebeam Revit add-in is a powerful tool to quickly create both 2D and 3D PDFs. The content from one software can be transformed during the before being imported into another software. So, for example, a rectangle in Bluebeam can become a revision cloud in Revit pretty easily. And also, visual programming, I think, is just a stepping stone into coding for those who are keen to learn. But I don't think it should be. I think it should be a way to get into coding and not a final. Just don't stay in. Don't stick to visual coding. Just learn something more advanced. It's going to be more useful. Here are some references, and you can download the presentation and the Dynamo scripts from this link, this Dropbox file. I've not gone through the scripts in detail, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask all the questions. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to reply.
Giovanni, I just had a question.
Yep.
When you're copying across from Revit the 3D PDF and you put it into your sheet, like I noticed that you also had the metadata categories there. If you copied the PDF into a blank PDF document, the 3D image into a blank PDF document, does that metadata come across automatically, or was that sort of filled in there because you were copying it onto one of your sheets that you'd already pre-set up?
No, I think the data will be already there. Is stored within the 3D PDF.
Oh,
So,
excellent.
Just do file new.
Yeah, I can see that being useful in just being able to, you know, sometimes like grab an architect's model and or an engineer's model and give it to somebody who doesn't really have any, you know, knowledge in how to sort of operate 3D programs. It's pretty easy to work out on a PDF software like Bluebeam.
Yes, and you can also save views. So in here you can have multiple views that the other user can retrieve, or you can take a screenshot. Well, I mean, just rotating it, take a screenshot. And
yeah, that's really cool.
I had a client that would send the guys on site who've never used any BIM software at all, but they're comfortable with Bluebeam, 3D PDFs all the time, just easier. So yeah, definitely a good workflow for there.
I found the 3D PDF navigating function to be a little bit difficult, but I don't know, there must be different settings for it, but I just found it a bit challenging.
I think you should pick the spin, because if you keep rotate, it
drives you nuts.
Yeah, but the spin helps a lot.
And you should
that spins around the selected object, does it?
You should be able to get clients to open it in their internet browser as well. There's sometimes an extension that they might need, but they don't even necessarily need a PDF viewer specifically to open the PDF. Do you know if that just uses IFC in the background, Giovanni? That's how it used to work, didn't it? Is that what that add-in is doing, you think?
It's a U3D file, which I don't know if it's IFC or.
It's not too many settings, yeah.
No.
I think in Bluebeam you can still import the IFC file as well. I'm not sure if that gives you a different. Because
you can add an edit 3D content, and then I think.
What's the other option? Yeah, IFC as well. Yeah. It'd be weird if they made their own format, but maybe they did. That's really interesting. It's definitely worth going through that content that Giovanni has, because if you're not used to Dynamo, obviously it looks very complicated. But even just some basic skills of Dynamo, you can really leverage some of those workflows with importing, markups or text notes, and I think there's some real value in those processes. And even that export, you can obviously do your batch hyperlinking and so on, or if you're using sets, but this is obviously giving you that functionality to have unlimited data that you're synchronizing through from another package. So it's quite an interesting workflow, I think. Any other questions while we've got Giovanni?
Just adding a note to that, Ben, like I think some of our engineers in our office, put a lot of time and effort into their drawings, and then we sort of like go through the process of duplicating, so that ability to be able to sort of share that information that's had a significant amount of time put into it is, I think, is really positive for those people who have actually spent a little bit more time coming up with a detail that is quite accurate and to scale.
Giovanni, have you tried, when you do importing markups, put it to a work set or some sort of object as such, so you can turn on and off, like a master markup on-off layer, or as such from an AutoCAD point of view?
Yeah, that can be possible. Yeah, or you can group them.
Yeah. It'd be interesting then. You're just importing a lot of markups, and then instead of accidentally printing them, just never print that work set.
Yeah, I mainly use these to copy the text notes. That's one that I use quite every day, and I have this stuff here, and I use this every day. It saves time. So, and then I usually redraw the lines, so I don't bring the full content back in. Like, for example, I would redraw these details because we have like families for RHS, families for plates. Of course, with Dynamo, if you could place a family instead of a line. That's possible, and even bold. For example, if you have a group or a object in Bluebeam that represent bold, then you could use Dynamo to place a Revit family in the same position. But that's the additional investment in the complexity of the script. And this is also the balance, because I realize that if the script is too complex, then less people are using it, and it's hard to tweak, it's hard to adapt or adjust for different situations. So sometimes it's good to do 60% of the job, 70%, and then manually tweak it to reach the 100%. Because in the end, I still need to double check what Dynamo has imported. So when I open the view, I just check that everything is there.
Giovanni, quick question for you. I'm an electrical engineer and do a lot of standard details with your previous jobs. Could we, in theory, export the PDF into Bluebeam, keep it as on a tool set, and then put it onto a drawing, and then use that to be important to Revit? That makes sense, to save time in drafting? As in single line diagrams or typical details could be, in theory, the same detail you put in, and if you don't know where it is in Revit or what project it was in, keep it in Bluebeam and then push it into Bluebeam into Revit that way?
Yes, for example, you could even write a text in Bluebeam that says place typical detail number 12.
Yeah.
And then having a Dynamo script that opens or just has the catalog of all the typical details, and then just brings into Revit, into a drafting view or on a sheet, that detail.
All right, thank you.
Can your Dynamo read JavaScript that's inside the PDF?
Well, this is why. This is why it's good to have a chat with the Bluebeam guys and to see if they can open the API, because all these examples are valid for just a generic PDF. So all the data that I am reading with Dynamo, it's stored inside the PDF. So if the JavaScript is inside, I don't think the JavaScript is inside the PDF.
I'm not sure myself.
So if it's saved, I think there's a PDF Explorer that I was using to check the content of a PDF. So this is the data that you can access, and some of these are lines, some of these are text. So yeah, so this is the data. So you got, if it's saved inside the file, then yes. If it's it will be, I mean, for example, it would be good to have, to me, that instead of using Dynamo, that the Revit add-in would have like an import, like read custom bookmarks. That can be done, or bring the lines, bring the markups in, because Revo or Bluebeam allows you to draw a line, and then when you save, that line is converted into a PDF and stored inside the PDF. But that line exists in Bluebeam as well, so you could read that line from Bluebeam instead from the PDF. But it's a larger conversation.
Oh,
All right.
good.
Thanks very much, Giovanni. That's
Thank you.
Yeah, really good. Hopefully, yeah, some people can play around with that. I think you really need to get your hands on it and have a look and maybe rope in some Dynamo experts. There's plenty of people out there, hopefully. But yeah, some really great ideas there. So now we're going to switch to Sean, and he's going to give us an overview of the new release of Bluebeam Review 20. So I think there's been a lot of stuff out on socials about Review 20, and obviously the big news is quite good news around some accessibility of servers in Australia, and Sean will go into some detail around that. But really keen for Sean to give us a bit of an overview, particularly now. It's been out for close to a month now, so I'll hand it over to Sean.
Thanks, man. Just a quick check, the audio is working?
Yep.
Cool. I live in fear of my audio not working. Let me see if my sharing content works. So the screen sharing's working?
Yep.
Great. Okay, guys, that was a super cool presentation by Giovanni. So for those I haven't met, I'm the Industry Solutions Manager for Bluebeam APAC, which means I get involved in a whole bunch of workflows and general tech solutions. So using Dynamo like that is a really interesting area that I want to do a lot more with. It comes up more and more in conversations. The other thing I do is gather feedback for localizations in this region. So the studio is a good example of that. There's a whole bunch of other ones. So my general motto is I can't have too many conversations. So any ideas, I love to hear them and bounce them around, feed them back. I've actually shared a few of these recordings with the team in the US because there's been some really good content, and I got some people who'll be very keen to see Giovanni's last presentation. So I'll share up some guys as soon as it's uploaded to YouTube as well. So today I'm just going to show really three main features of Review 20. So we'll show Studio, of course, then we'll show some of the new markups, and then we'll show the new filtering options for the markups list. So let's just get started with Studio. So the first thing you're going to see here, most important thing, is when we go to log in, we have the Studio AU icon. So this has been an absolute mission from Kelly for years to get this done. Every conversation that we've had, it gets mentioned, every presentation and user group. Because of the residency, as we all know, without residency constraints, people have been unable to use Studio. So government jobs have got various kinds of restrictions. This now opens it up. So when we log in, so let's click on sign in button here. We get the familiar looking screen. You will have to make a new account for the Australian server. It's completely separated from the UK and US ones. So you go to your create account option here and go through the process. I won't do it now. I'll just show the new features. We'll happily do a whole bunch of extended presentations on all the aspects of Studio in future, but we'll just keep it pretty simple here. I'll just log in. There's a few changes you see straight away on the login. You will have the sessions that you have joined and haven't joined showing up. So you don't have to worry about forgetting the invitations you've been sent. You can see them on the list here and go and click on them. It just makes it a more streamlined experience, kind of a quality of life, simplistic factor. This one I should have deleted. When I go and add a new session, I click on the plus button here, click on new session, give it a name, so I call it floor plan. And I'm not going to spend too much time on the details of what I'm doing in terms of the content. I'm more showing the new functionality. So you would go and carefully click on your various options, make sure you've clicked on restrict by email address, etc. When you press OK, first of all, it's faster because it's a local server, so it's just working with less effort really. When you get to adding people to the invitations, you've got more options. So the most popular one is if I go, let me just copy some emails to the clipboard here. If I go and type in some email addresses here, I press paste. When I click on check and include, it does a nice little summary. So it shows all the addresses here by domain. If I had more domains, it would summarize by each of those. So you can keep track of who and what you've invited. You can click on, you can add a message, of course, click on invite these participants, and they all get an email being asked to join the session. What you then see on your main panel is the people who have and haven't joined. So if you want to remind somebody, you can click on their name and remind them, resend the invitation if they've forgotten about it. So again, it's just taking the existing functionality, which works very well. First of all, we have the Australian server, most important thing in the world. If that wasn't enough, you have a more streamlined experience to make it even easier to get in. So a lot of folks didn't really get to use Studio properly because of that restriction. Now the whole thing is available on this release. And again, we want to do more and more with it, but we'll probably do a separate session. The same thing happens for projects. So when you use projects, you have the joined and not joined option as well. So the same functionality is available for both of them to make it a very, very easy to use experience. So moving on to the second phase of this, which is the markups. So for general markups, there's just some really fundamental, simple things that make your lives easier. So if you go in here somewhere and go to one of the standard markups, we'll go to Tools, Markup, Callout. If I just click on one of these and say I want to remove that wall. We've always had the option to right-click and add more leaders. It's actually one of the options that many folks don't know about, and they're very happy to see. When you do that, what you now have is more interactive functionality where the leaders get placed. So you can see when I move the mouse up to the top, it snaps to the middle, bring it to the right, it snaps over to the right. It's just doing a very simple and intuitive process to make the whole thing tidy. So I can keep on adding these, and what I can then do is move everything around, and as I do it, everything interacts. So depending on how I want to pick this, I just get a very simple, intuitive and interactive experience. What it means really is I can quickly move around, make it look professional. It's a whole bunch less clicks. So that means less frustration, it means more efficiency, it means happier people and better work. So we like that. Again, once you know it's there, you just use it, and as you click it around, it'll all kind of make sense intuitively. There's an extension of this as well, where even if you use a normal text markup, so if I do a text box here, if I type in something like mobile charging or something like that, doesn't matter what I type in here really, I can even right click on the text box and add a leader here as well. So the exact same functionality is available in everything. This now becomes callout as opposed to simple text box. So that alone will make things more efficient. To add more to it, we can go to our tools menu and go to measure. So I've set the scale here already, and I can measure my lengths. The difference now is that I can actually do more with that length measurement. So I've got my measurement here. Before, if I wanted to actually turn that into a wall, I would have to go and put a separate markup in and do the work on that. What I can now do is select this and change the line style, so I can use all of my existing line styles on this measurement. So I have some customized ones here for various types of services. I'll do a simple one here, just show a double line style for a wall. And I can go further with that. I can do the standard extensions of the various aesthetics. I can go and hold the shift button, move the actual text off it. And then if I wanted to be very thorough, I could change my my various colors, so it looks like a proper wall markup. So it's still a length measurement. It's just able to double up and also be used for some documentation purposes. And of course, all the customized land styles with hatching patterns and everything else in the middle, they all work here. So again, you're just preventing the need for too many clicks and just making things work quicker. The last one to mention on the markups very quickly is a thing that's used by oil and gas, and I think some MEP guys use this as well, where when you do any kind of text markup, you want to put a shape around it. So we've had circle and we've had triangle in the past. We now have this hexagon as well. So for the guys who do a whole bunch of those, that is exactly what they've been after for ages. So again, once you know it's there, very, very simple to use. So those markup enhancements are just simple things to make your lives better. The last one to show is the markups list. So for people like me who like playing with data and spreadsheets, this is a very, very powerful scenario. So what you do is click on the filter button and you'll see it looks a little bit different straight away. So what we've got is the option to click on any of these columns and do a whole range of filters. So if I click on the date column and click on the last 2 days, it just shows these new markups that we just done now. As well as clicking on the existing options in here, you can also click on a custom one. So let me clear that first of all. When I go to custom, I can say I want the date to be before, and when I click on I could type in my date or click on the calendar button here and click on a certain time. So I want the date to be before last year. That's everything apart from my new markups. If I had different ranges, I could easily go in here and say, go back to my custom button and add something else to this. Make it also after and click on a certain date here as well and walk through that. In this case, I don't need to do that, but I could go and keep on adding different ranges to multiple columns and build myself a combined filter. So the next thing I could do here is say of those markups, I want to show the markups done in that date range by, we'll say, the contractor. Now I have just these showing up. Once that's been done, then I can go to my list here and save that. I can call this engineer and pre-2020. That's been saved. I can now use that on multiple files. And this is a really important part for checking, because if you're having to redo it in a tedious fashion every time, you may not bother or you may not have time, and then the checks simply don't happen. So having these done once and done correctly makes a huge difference. The other one, which I'm pretty fond of, is the text filters. And they've been there already before, but they're just easier to use now. So you can see the word power is mentioned quite a lot here. So if I go to my text filter, I've got some obvious ones here. If I click on custom, I've got a whole bunch of specific functions where I can look for text fields that begin with, end with, contain. So I just look for ones that contain the word power. So when I press apply, all the power marker, also all the markups with the word power are now highlighted. So I can do my usual thing where you zoom in, select one of these, and you jump to that exact area. So there's other versions of this, and you can to your heart's content go and build all these complex overlapping filters. Of course, these work better when you use your tool sets to have consistent markups and types and everything else, so you can actually streamline these and have everyone use the same things. So that's the main features. And again, we could do a whole bunch more with each of these, but if you just remember that you have, first of all, the AU server, so you can do studio work, which is the one we're most excited about. Then you have enhancements to the markups, and I think those will be discovered organically. As you use the software, you come across them. Then with the markups list, filtering is one of the most powerful features. So if you haven't been using it before, now is a great time to start, because it's all set up and streamlined. So yeah, obviously very happy to go into any of these in more detail. And yeah, looking forward to chatting soon.
Do we? Oh, no sound, Ben.
Sorry, Dan. Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Sean. That's really great overview. I think, as we can see, really focused around efficiency of the tool, particularly those using bigger projects. I think that one around the invites is something I know for myself is really going to be quite valuable, especially as an administrator, when you have to sort of follow that up with users why they don't have access, and have they clicked on the email link. So I think that that alone for me is a really big one. And then obviously, as you mentioned, that performance, that was the first thing I checked when we got hold of it. Even PDFs 5-6 megabyte, might be a detailed PDF. That little bit of lag on those US servers, I think that's a big change. It just sort of increases that performance quite dramatically in those load times, which I think is a good thing as well. So yeah, any questions from anyone on those points? Obviously, reach out to your resellers or whoever supports you at Bluebeam as well to get a more detailed overview. I believe, Sean, the Australian server you can use with 2019 as well, with a bit of a workaround, just with the manual mapping to the servers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. But you do need to upgrade if you're on an earlier version than 19. So there's that possibility of 2019.
If you send an invitation to the people using 19, like I sent an invitation to my 19 version, my 20 version, it was easier because it sort of mapped it for me because it invited me to that server.
Oh, okay. So you don't have to create that account. Yeah, it does seem a bit strange. Why am I creating an account? But it's a whole new, obviously, security and database. So that there's a whole separate system there, which you can have the same username and whatever credentials that you need, but there is that extra step. So that's a good tip, Shan. If you forward that to yourself, you can invite yourself. And you do need to transition your projects across manually, I believe, as well, Sean. Is that right? If you've got any existing projects on the US or UK servers, you'll need to transition that locally and then re-establish it.
Yeah, you do. Like you said, I was a bit surprised, or I wasn't thinking properly when I first had to create the account, but since they're totally separated, you have to make a new account and transition them across, which is part of the process, I suppose, for having the security.
Yeah, but if you add new users, that will do that will know that they're new, and then they'll have to go through that process as well. So it's just a bit of a transition, but yeah, there'll be no reason for Australian projects to continue to use the old server. So it'll just be a initial transition to get your team across there, I guess.
Actually, one thing, Ben, I forgot to mention as well is I think on the last Melbourne user group you had somebody presenting Studio, and yeah, she mentioned the follow option, and I'm finding that more and more people are using that because we're all doing so many video conferences. People feel like backseat drivers. They're saying, "Hey Ben, zoom in here, hang on, pan over there," because one person's got control. So people like the fact that you can just have somebody follow and then they can zoom around and interact more themselves. So that one feature, which is one we often overlook, has become more and more popular, I think.
Yeah, I definitely have seen a lot of interest in that, to be honest, and in a session environment as well. Obviously the markups are live, so you've got that ability to, it's quite a high-end whiteboard tool. Like there's a lot of whiteboard tools out there, but it's a bit of a setup to get it started. But for those technical online workshops, it can be a really good option with the live markups, the tracking of who's marking up, and obviously the follow functionality as well. It's a pretty powerful combination.
Right, spot on. The whiteboarding thing is something I'm hearing more and more of too. There's been loads of discussions on doing diagrams for site logistics, and so it really is the equivalent of standing around the whiteboard, putting scratches and highlights and various things. So yeah, good to see applications that are expanding out.
Yep, excellent. Well, thanks very much. Not sure if there's any other questions, but yeah, as I said, definitely there's a host of information out there for the new release, and I'm sure all of your resellers and support teams will be happy to set up separate sessions as well. All right, so we'll just jump to Shen now to do some news, and then we're pretty much at the end of the session tonight.
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Alrighty. So I hope you can see my screen okay. There's not a lot of news. I think all the big news was last time we all caught up. So I did a bit of hunting around on the global bugs. What you'll see is there is definitely several USA bug meetings, but they seem to be around about 3 AM to 5 AM, so not very good. But they will be up on the Bug YouTube channel at some point, so I definitely recommend you have a look at them, only being that it's just interesting to see how other people do things. You'll see from the early adopters to some more advanced workflows as well. So yeah, definitely jump on board. But I did notice that the London bug on the 14th of October is at a reasonable time for us, so 8:30 to 10:30, to just see how they're doing it. I was going to jump across and not do that, but let me see if I can click on to here. Right. So there is I'll give you a link to this, but the Bluebeam user groups, you can see what's coming up. Hopefully we start seeing some more come on globally, but I guess some places are opening up, so we never really know. And I'll make sure I send a link out to the London one there. There's also the Bluebeam upcoming events page. Now this is a global one, so obviously we're here in our MelBUG, but it's worth having a jump on from time to time. Yes, time zone's a bit different, but you will see your local resellers or some information that you want to sort of, could be of interest to jump onto. Next, just thought I'd just jump onto the Building Smart. Good resource page for a calendar of events coming up. Let me see, the SID bug is back on here for December the 1st, which I've got mentioning. These guys are pretty good actually, and putting information pretty quick smart of anything inside of industry. So jump on there again and just see what's around town. Brisbane obviously coming up on the 16th. Now, I thought I'd jump onto some blogs about Review 20, and I'll be honest, I tried to hunt it around. I don't know if there's many blogs out there. A friend of mine, Troy DeGroot's got his top 10 list he does every year for different versions. So he's done his top 10 of why you want to upgrade to Review 20. He doesn't mention our server because he's US based, but he's a good read, and it's Bluebeam and Burgers, does some interesting burger reviews. It might sound a bit cheesy, but I did do a review on this myself. Look, honestly, if you can find some other blogs out there, please send them through to us. We're interested in what other people are doing to, improve one another and review the product. Just see what else is out there. These guys here had something on ATG. They didn't really dig down too much into it, but if you just want a bit of an overview, that's not too bad. That's US based. And lastly, I thought with this, bring up the review release notes, just something you get from the support page. Information about this. I did jump into the sort of back of house area. There is no major bugs that's been notified with this release of Bluebeam, so nothing that stands out. So all good news so far. And I do know that some companies will not release the latest version, especially when I was using like Revit or something, until some serious testing's been done. And you should do some bit of testing if you're, going to adopt to Review 20. Have a bit of a play around first, but it's nice to know that there's no big issues been coming up, and no story I'm hearing at least of patches that need to come out pretty quickly at all. So all good there, and yeah, that's really it for the news. Let me review, Ben.
Great, thanks, Shane. That's a good summary. Oh, what happened there? Just share my screen again one last time. Yeah, so looking forward to our next event, and really, I guess a call out for anyone that's interested in speaking, because you know, as you've seen tonight, the content is really what makes this, and we really want to continue with that momentum in finding people. We've been lucky so far with a couple of great people stepping forward. So we'll pencil in that date around 8th of December to get one in before the end of the year. So I think SidBug's just put theirs a week earlier than that, so we tend to try and not overlap with those guys. But yeah, we'll be looking to find some speakers. So Shan is the guy that will be chasing people up, but definitely if you've got any ideas, put yourself forward. So keep an eye on that LinkedIn group that we're running, and that's where you can find when that next event's launched. But hopefully we've inspired some people to speak next month. So we do have a contact email there, but really, as I said, that LinkedIn group is probably the best spot to get in touch, or feel free to get in touch with any of the committee group personally as well. Yeah, as we said, that YouTube channel, Bluebeam, has all of the bugs on there. It does take us a little bit of time to get it through the Bluebeam group. We'll try and get that fast this time. It did take a couple of weeks last time, just because of the handover of the files and then them getting the right people to line it all up. But it is good to have them all in one spot, and there is a few there, but I think we'll see more. So definitely jump on there, and we'll share that link out again. Once again, you can find it on the LinkedIn channel page. There's a link there from the last meeting as well. But yeah, thanks very much for everyone attending. Thanks to Giovanni and Sean for presenting. I think you'd agree, some really great sessions tonight, and thanks a lot to the committee and all the hard work, and Bluebeam for supporting us. Really great session, I think, and everyone have a great evening.